we might be out doing some fishing in this boat. Hi, I'm Brock Yates, and this happens to be one of the fastest bass boats on the lake, and its owner, one of the fastest drivers in Grand National stock car racing today. He's also a very intriguing individual, and I think you're going to enjoy meeting him, because today, the man we meet is Buddy Baker, number 21 on the Great Drivers. To Buddy Baker, second place is no place. Known for his prowess on high-bank superspeedways, Baker is a relentless competitor who refuses to settle for anything less than outright victory. His win in the 1980 Daytona 500, in which he averaged over 177 miles an hour, stands as the fastest 500-mile race in history. The son of retired Grand National star Buck Baker, Buddy now limits his racing to about 20 superspeedway races a year. He has 19 Grand National wins to his credit and spends most of his leisure time bass fishing near his beachfront home at Lake Norman, North Carolina. Baker is also an amateur painter and has two sons, Brian and Brandon, who aspire to racing careers. Buddy, I'll tell you something. This looks like a Grand National version of a bass boat.
Well, Brock, it's one of the best boats I've ever had. I mean, for fishing and everything, it's equipped with everything that Tidecraft and everybody could put on it, and it's just a super boat. It runs right around 70 miles an hour. It's got power trim for the motor. If you get into a shallow water area, you got foot controls and all, and a button that actually raises the engine up so you can go into 1.5 feet of water and just keep going right along. And
is the lake good for fishing? Is it a good bass lake?
I think it's very good. It's got a lot of striped bass in here, a lot of crappie, and a lot of largemouth. And it just depends on the time of the year. I was really hoping for good weather today because we have located the stripers up here, and last week I caught about 7 right off the end of my boathouse out here.
You know, Buddy, you're a guy that's got a reputation as being one of the very fastest race drivers in history. It would seem kind of an odd contrast that you'd like fishing that's so quiet and kind of peaceful and away from all that speed.
Well, not really. That's the whole point of getting out on the lake with a good friend, a good bass fisherman, or you know, a guest has come up for the weekend or something, and going out on the lake and getting away from racing. You live it every day like I do. When you get a chance to get out and do something that's totally away from it, you know, going to the spot, this boat's pretty quick, but when you really get there and shut everything down, put the electric motor in the water and begin to fish, then you start talking about fishing, your mind gets away from your business, and when you go back to it, you got a fresh approach.
How many days a year can you get out and fish?
Well, unfortunately, I was really looking forward to taking you fishing today, but weather's just too bad. It's just freezing now, and it's raining pretty hard, but it's not typical around here. We get to fish about 4 days out of the week in off-season, and then, of course, in racing season, I'm lucky to get a day out of the week.
And when we come back, we're going to kick back with Buddy Baker and spend a little time talking about some other aspects of his very intriguing life. So stay with us on The Great Drivers. Mr. Baker, I got to tell you something. This is a fantastic lake house. I never would have imagined that a guy like yourself, who spent most of his life, I presume, sitting in race cars, would have the time to put together a little kind of sanctuary out here by the lake like this.
Well, it has actually been a project, just something to really put a lot of time into, and the good part about it, I didn't have to hurry because it's, like you said, it's a lake house and something to really enjoy. So if I wanted to do a wall today, I did a wall today. If I wanted to design a bathroom and build it, that's what I did. And it's just been, I think, as far as relaxing, it's been as relaxing as going fishing or anything that you do in leisure, because it is a project that I'm not hurrying on, and I'll go to little flea markets and things, you know, when I'm at the racetrack at Pocono or either in Michigan or places like that, I'll go to flea markets and I'll find a little dish or a little coffee table or a little chair or something, and maybe not buy anything. Spend an hour or so after practice some days, and it's really been a lot of fun.
You know, you mentioned the word relaxed. I can remember when I first ran into you, I suppose probably back in the middle 60s, and you know, you are a lot more relaxed now. You were under a lot of pressure when you first started this business. I think you had a harder apprenticeship than a lot of guys, don't you? I mean, the first few years were tough on you.
Well, you know, it was a situation, I guess, that you create for yourself. But I am from a racing family. My father was quite successful, and I know myself, if I had been a failure, it would have been the end of me, because I wanted to succeed so much that it dominated my life. And in turn, when I was young, I did some crazy things on the racetrack. I was, like you said, in a hurry. I missed a lot of good friends on the way up because of my impatience. As far as I wanted to be a top driver the first year, and it's, you know, you have to pay your dues in our sport. And as I got a little bit older and started winning races and had better car owners and really had the top rides, I started slowing down and realizing that there's a lot more to life than just being at the racetrack. A little self-satisfaction of doing a job around here a lot of times is a reward similar to achievements on the racetrack.
Buddy, you started out, you and Richard Petty were really the first of the second generation of great drivers to come out in NASCAR and Grand National Racing. And, you know, Richard really was successful so much more quickly than you were. Did that add pressure to you? I mean, was the press and fans and whatever constantly kind of implying, well, what's the matter with Baker? Because here's Richard, he came along and he's winning right away. And of course, we knew that the tradition behind the Petty family and the race cars that Richard was getting were a whole lot different than you, but it still must have added some personal pressure on you, didn't it?
Well, what you're talking about, he moved into his father's racing operation. Now, in my own mind at that particular time, I knew that I was driving cars that were what you call second-class race cars. They were good cars, but they were not winners. And Richard moved in and great equipment. I was running Sportsman, modified. I was running 5 and 6 times a week when Richard was running nothing but Grand National. The pressure never bothered me. I raced for Richard for 2 years, and I never run a parallel of my life with Richard Petty, because I've won races that I know that he couldn't have won, and I'm sure he's won a bunch that I couldn't have won.
Mm-hmm.
But I never ever put myself as an understudy to somebody that was going along fast. There was a whole bunch of people at that particular time that was starting out that Richard Petty would have overshadowed had they let it enter into their career. But the good part is I've been in sport now for 25 years, and I won at most of the major speedways, and a lot of them many times. And as far as my own self-satisfaction of what I've done, I feel like I've accomplished pretty much what I wanted to do. I've never run for the point championship. I'd like to do that sometime, but all in all, when the day comes that I have to put the helmet back in the back of the house here and say it's all over, I feel like I've had a good career and met a lot of great people. And, you know, I'm not shallow enough that when I quit racing, that's the end of everything.
Right.
I have other interests that I feel like will be a part of my life when I do quit.
Well, it's you've not run a full schedule for a number of years. You run the major speedways, and it must be that you already started to expand your interest and thinking about other things. And you've never been a guy that had been totally wired into the racing is the only thing in your life.
Well, you know, I don't think you can do that. It's like Cale Yarborough, a guy that I really respect, and I wouldn't tell him that. You know, we're competitors, but I respect him because he does have other interests. He owns car dealerships. He keeps himself very much in the flow of things, and when he quits racing, he'll just move into his business world. And, you know, no matter how much you love racing, and of course I'll always be around it. I have two sons right now that have an interest of beginning racing, and I would do anything that I could to help them. But when it's over, I will always relate to racing and go to them and enjoy the fun and excitement of the sport. But I also will be able to walk away with a feeling that I was a part of the sport and one of the better drivers, and that's all you can ask for.
Well, your involvement in the sport has been it's really been growing, and you've grown every year that you've been in the sport successfully. I mean, you've gotten to be, you're more of a factor every time you come on the racetrack, and it must be satisfying not to start out as a nickel rocket, as it were, and then go into decline. You know, you know, blow your wad right at the start.
As Junior Johnson said about some of the guys that are starting out right now, they're practicing medicine and never went to school, you know, and I did go to school. I run short tracks and modifieds and sportsmen, and I took a car that was 10 miles an hour slower at Daytona and led the race, and you know, there's an accomplishment when you take something that's not supposed to be up front and going that way. There's as much satisfaction in doing that as to take the best car and go backwards 2 or 3 positions. You may finish 1 position ahead of me, but if I've come from 30th spot to 1st and then slip back to 4th, that's not too bad. And to go out on the racetrack and pray that nobody messed up in front of me, and still I was running with the lead cars without any brakes, and it's a racetrack that you must use brakes, or at that time I thought you had to have brakes to get in number 3 and number 1 corner. And I ended up 3rd place overall, and you know, the crew would have to catch me coming in the pits 4 or 5 pits before mine and drag yourself till they got me stopped, and we'd go back out and would run really good. And then of course caution laps was the problem, you know, trying to negotiate cars speeding up and slowing down under the caution to close up and everything. Here I have no brakes at all, and I'd go by them all down on the left-hand side and everything. And of course NASCAR was getting nervous about that because I wouldn't stay in line. They didn't know I didn't have brakes.
Right.
They should have known I was dragging half the pit area down through there. But you know, when the race was over, I left there as proud as the man that won the race, because I knew that I took a race car that most people would have parked and ended up in the top 5, and I was quite proud of that.
You fish as hard or play golf as hard as you race?
Oh, no. No, there's only, in my opinion, I think if you put 110% in one area, the fishing is nice and I enjoy it, and that's what it's for the enjoyment. I'll catch as many fish as most people will out here, but, you know, I'm not one that gets up at 2 o'clock in the morning and wakes up half the neighborhood to go with me and stuff like that. I'll get up at 7 o'clock in the morning. Half of them are coming in at that time, and go out and have myself a good day. But no, I'm not a die-hard outdoorsman like I once was. I used to go to Santee Cooper and get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, have breakfast at 3:30, and hit the lake and sit out there with ice dripping off the fishing line. And you know, I thought that was living, but I take a little more time at stuff like that. I just then go out there at daylight and cast the line and see a raindrop or something fall off of it, not ice. And you know, I do put a lot into my racing. I think of all things, it kills my pride if I don't run up front.
You like to run up front. You're one of those guys. You like to put the car out front and stay there. You don't like to pace, sit back, and if you possibly can, you like to lead it, right?
It's kind of like the 4th man that discovered America. You know, it really don't matter if you don't win. That's the whole object of driving a race car, is to, first of all, make sure your sponsor gets his maximum out of it, and self-pride, and the crew, you know, they win the race for you as much as you win for yourself. And if they give you 100%, then you're going to retaliate with 100%. If you do that, you're supposed to win, and if you don't, you leave there a little bit, you know, I've had a lot of people say you're a different person on race day than you are in everyday life. Oh, I hope so.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'd never get to the racetrack if I am like I am every day. I have a natural tendency. I do nothing better than anybody, I think.
So you can shut it off. Like on a day when you're not racing, you can pretty well come out here and do a little fishing or knock around with. There are a lot of Grand National guys that live around Lake Norman. I know a lot of. And do you see a lot of them? And you hang out with a lot of them?
Well, we don't hang out much. You know, we're competitors, but I think it's like football players or boxers or anybody that's involved in sports. When I do retire, they'll be my best friends because we're no longer competitors, and you have a certain, well, we're alike.
Mm-hmm.
We have things to talk about and discuss, but right now I got to go to the racetrack with Dale Earnhardt and Tim Richmond and these guys that live up here, and we're running for $150,000 in Daytona. Well, I don't want them or myself to misinterpret friendship.
Mm-hmm.
Because I want to win when I go, and I don't make any qualms about it. They're good people, and I like them, you know, all. But when it comes race day, my whole plan of attack is to win.
Would you race if the money wasn't as big as it is now?
I'd run for nothing if I could win.
Would you?
Oh, yeah.
And the fire's still burning as hard as it was, say, 10, 15 years ago?
Oh, no doubt about it. You know, as far as the economic part of my life, I'm not worried about tomorrow, the next day, or the next 2 years. But, you know, I've been very fortunate. I've had some awful good race cars, and I've been able to save and invest in things. And, you know, I don't strictly drive just for what I get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I still enjoy the sport. And if somebody said today, you can go to Canada and go fishing for a week, or you can go to Daytona, I'd much rather go to Daytona. You know, that to me, it's my life, and that's what I like. But still, I have to get away from it every once in a while and go boat riding and do a little fishing and stuff like that, just to get away from it for a little while.
That kind of increases the old intensity when it comes back again, huh?
Well, you know, it's like being in a trance for 5 hours a lot of times. You live your job, and to be able to come home and kick your shoes off and hop in a boat and get away from it is pure medicine.
I don't mean to belabor this point, but this is a fantastic house. I just, the decoration in here is unbelievable, and the Oriental theme, where'd you get interested in Oriental art?
That's a very good question. I guess about 6, 7 years ago, I went into a guy's home out in California, and it was all Oriental antiques, and the screens and the ivory inlaid and the pearl inlaid things, and I was taken by it all. Really, I mean, just the simplest thing was so beautiful, you know, finished off like that, and I got interested in it, and as I travel around everywhere, of course, I'll pick up a knick-knack here and another thing there, and, you know, you just run into extra good finds around the country, and some of them you pay dearly for, and some of them you absolutely steal, but the whole idea is to not go with the idea you have to buy anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just pick a good thing up and go with it.
You do a little painting, too, from time to time.
Yeah.
I mean house painting.
I do. Well, you can always tell one of my paintings. They're half done. I'll start out and the phone will ring and somebody will say, we need you in another town, or we need to go test this, or I think, well, I better run up to Stewart and see the Wood Brothers, and you can always tell, really. It's either half done or just a rough sketch.
Well, if you ever get around to finishing it, who knows, you may be hanging in museums. I don't mean you personally. I mean,
yeah, I'll be hanging in a museum. That's what'll happen.
Well, I'll tell you, we want to thank you for inviting us into your house and spending some time with us. I'm sorry we couldn't get any fishing in today, but maybe we'll come back and try that again sometime.
Well, Brock, I tell you, you have a standing invitation anytime you're in this area to come by and stay as long as you want to, and it's the most beautiful place in the world, the lake is, I feel like, and you're certainly welcome to come up, and we will do some fishing.
Thanks, old man. I'll take you up on that. And thank you for joining us today with Buddy Baker on The Great Drivers. I'm Brock Yates.